Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. There you go. I haven't started a stream with a song for a while, so I thought I'd bring that back. Shout out to the chat. Big up Warts for the super chat. Stupendous timing, stupendous confectionery. Shout out to Mark Hatch, Ade, Jaden, Lawrence, Ricky, Naz, Chris, G-Man. Big up G-Man. Says Dave Allen, my biggest fan. Yes, Elliot, creative content. Sean Sims. Down goes Fisher indeed. Down goes Fisher. Yes, Jake. Big up, big up. Ortega. D says Wilder. Yeah, Wilder. Dave Allen is campaigning for a fight with Deontay Wilder. He's spoken to Eddie Hearn about it. Eddie Hearn's done a couple of interviews. I don't know whether he's reached out yet to Wilder's people, but yes. And Dave Allen spoke about this on his channel. We'll get into it in a moment. Dave Allen on his channel has said categorically that he wants the Wilder fight. He's pursuing it. Shout out to JR. Ortega says, spit me your favorite Biggie bar. Biggie bar. I was never really a big Biggie fan, nor a Tupac fan, to be honest. I prefer Biggie over Tupac, but God, let me think Biggie bars, man. I'm trying to think of bars that I won't get flagged for. What do you think now? I can't think off the top of my head, you know. I remember the Biggie songs, but the bars ain't coming to me. He's got some weird bars in what's that song called now? The Weak of the Strong. You got it going. Who got it going on? You're dead wrong. Yeah, dead wrong. He's got some weird bars in that song, bro. Very weird bars. Shout out to Charles B. Shout out to Lawrence for the super chat. Much appreciated. Oh, there you go. That's a good one. Yes. Your heartbeat sound like Sasquatch feet. Thundering, shaking the concrete. Yeah. Yeah, Biggie had loads of suspect bars. Diddy bars, yes. Darius says Ori retired. Yep, we're going to get into that. Shout out to Charlene. We'll get into Ori. Again, I don't want to say his first name because that sounds Diddy-ish. Wart says, wonder if Diddy got to Biggie with the baby oil. I mean, as weird as Diddy is, and as close as he and Biggie were, I can't imagine that Biggie weren't aware of Diddy's proclivities. I can't imagine he weren't aware. So I think you got to say that Biggie is kind of suspect by association, to be honest. Shout out to Workstation. Davin says, my boy Deontay will be back like Superman. Is that right? Lex says, Biggie rapped about R-wording kids and throwing them off bridges. He could be worse than Diddy. Yeah, he could be, but to be fair, during the 1990s, it was a period, I want to say around the mid to late 90s, there was a period there where rappers were literally saying anything, and I mean anything, and there was no backlash or very little backlash. And it's as if the rappers were trying to outdo each other by saying the most outlandish stuff, the most like demonic, outlandish stuff. And there was no such thing as getting cancelled back then. People would say crazy stuff, their record label would put it out, and you know, they wouldn't lose contracts or anything like that. It was a weird way in most cases anyway. So yeah, Biggie did say some crazy stuff. So did DMX, by the way. There's a DMX song, I remember, where he says something like, you know, he's rapping about robbing somebody. And he says, if your daughter's older than, I think he says 13 or 14, he's going to R-word her. Yeah. Who else was rapping weird lyrics? Cameron was rapping weird lyrics, talking about dropping babies on their heads. And there was all kind of stuff going on back then. And in fact, to encapsulate the whole one-upmanship of just violent lyrics, Big L wrote a song, well, recorded a song called The Devil's Son. And in The Devil's Son, he was talking about R-wording handicapped and crippled women. Crazy. So yeah, it was a time in hip hop when people would literally just say, it was like shock value. That's what I'm looking for. This was the era of Jerry Springer, Howard Stern, the shock jock. Later on, you would have what was that thing called now? Tom Green and all that, Jackass and all them kind of people. So it was the area of like people doing stuff for shock value. Even Eminem, of course, you know, he was saying all kind of crazy stuff. In 98 when he came out, was it 97 or 98 when he came out with the Slim Shady LP? So people were saying all kind of shock value stuff. That was like a thing in the 90s. Not to excuse any of it, but with the case of Biggie, it wasn't an unusual thing for rappers to say stuff like that back then. There you go, Chainsaw. It's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead moose. There you go. Yeah, it was a weird time in hip-hop that, you know, back then you could literally say anything and not get cancelled. And I mean anything. Jake says, is this typical Matchroom get the narrative going for a big cash out fight? Maybe. But in this case, Dave Allen is calling for it. So it's not like he's being, you know, ushered in a particular direction and manipulated. He wants it. Big up Workstation for the super chat. Says Delicious Ori has chosen to retire. I guess professional boxing wasn't very tasty for him. Boom, boom. In fact, let's come on to that one first, right? We'll talk about the Ori situation. Oreo cookie. So here it is. Delicious Ori, Team GB Olympian, retires from boxing after just one professional fight. Former GB Team Olympian Delicious Ori has announced his shock retirement from boxing after just one professional fight, saying he plans to follow up on his degree and enter the corporate world. Ori made his professional debut under Frank Warren's Queensberry back in April. Now, without sounding harsh, I think it's for the best, because watching his debut, I saw some of his amateur fights. I saw him fight in the Olympics. And after watching those and his pro debut, I don't see him going anywhere in the pros. I have to be honest. You know, I said after watching his first professional bout, I think in my post-fight review, maybe I did the post-fight review in the live stream. Before the fight, I was saying that he looks like another Tony Yoka. After the fight, I was saying that the Tony Yoka comparison might have been generous, to be honest. Because, yeah, he looked terrible. And for somebody who had such an amateur background to look that bad on their pro debut, like I say, I don't think professional boxing is for him. And, yeah, he may be better off using that degree and pursuing whatever in the corporate world. there was also some talk about him going into WWE. He might want to revisit that. Anthony Ogogo ended up in, what was it, AEW wrestling. So Delicious Ori might want to revisit WWE because I don't think the corporate world is as lucrative as it was a few years ago with the way the economy's going and what have you. So I don't know. He's chosen not to pursue professional boxing. He says he doesn't have the hunger for it anymore. Or, you know, the sport of boxing. Obviously, he only had one pro fight, but he doesn't have the hunger for boxing anymore. And that has made him decide to call it a day. I reckon he looked at a man like a Talma, who's several years younger than he is, and he just thought, nah, allow it. If that's who I'm going to have to be competing with, then what's the point? I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that I can mess with that guy. Let me leave boxing alone, you know? Sparky says, who cares? You know, it kind of reminds me of, there was a, what was the guy's name? You know when Eddie Hearn first launched Matchroom US, there was a black American heavyweight who actually lost on his debut on a Matchroom show. Can any of you guys remember his name? But he's completely disappeared into thin air as well, hasn't he? Nicozy Solomon, thank you, Black Dynamite. That's the guy. Yeah. He lost on his pro debut. I'm not sure if he fought again since. But, yeah, he was getting all the hype from Eddie Hearn and disappeared into obscurity after one, possibly a couple more fights. Charles B says, wonder if he got chinned in sparring and got spooked. Who knows? Jay Wright says, Nicozy Solomon, Hearn dropped him because he failed a test. But failing a test doesn't mean much in pro boxing, does it? You can always come back after failing a test. Ask Jarrell Miller, ask Dylan White, you know? Sparky says, yo, Hatman, are you an atheist? You sound like one. No, I'm not an atheist. I am an agnostic. Atheism, to me, is not logical. I'm talking about atheism in practice. Because some atheists will tell you, well, you can be an atheist and agnostic at the same time. Well, theoretically, but in practice, very few atheists are actually agnostic. Yeah, the vast majority of them are of the belief that God doesn't exist. And that's what, you know, disbelief in God is a belief in itself. Anyway, it's a boxing show tonight. Maybe we'll get onto stuff like that later on once we've talked about all the boxing stories. But I agree with Dr. Wu. Atheism in practice is a religion of its own. It is. They've got their own priests like Richard Dawkins and all these people. Yeah, it's like a religion of its own. Darius says Oria's 28. They would have probably moved him quicker than he was ready. Take unnecessary damage or getting sparked by a journeyman in like his 8th fight. All right, so that's Ori. Again, I suspect he's seen a Talma and he's thought, allow it. I can't compete with this guy. You know, going back to rap. Obviously, I used to rap. I started rapping back in the 90s when I was in secondary school, high school. And throughout the 90s, rap really developed. I mean, in the early 90s, you still had people like Slick Rick who were around. You know, you had LL Cool J, of course, and people like that. And their style was quite primitive. Their flows and whatever, even Big Daddy Kane, early Big Daddy Kane, their flows were kind of primitive. By the end of the 90s, it was like super advanced. That decade, in terms of rap flows and just overall skills, that decade, the 1990s, saw absolutely vast improvement in terms of the skill of rappers. And so every year when a new rapper would come out, when Nas came out, when this one, when Big L came out, I would try and keep up. And I would tell myself, okay, I can just about keep up with this new rapper who's come out, who's taking the game by storm. But towards the end of the 90s, when Big Pun came out, and I listened to his album, Capital Punishment, I was like, okay, I quit. I can't compete with this. I can't keep, like, if this is how fast the level is developing, if this is how high the level is getting year upon year, I can't ever keep up with this. Big Pun's coming out and he's at this level. Imagine who's coming out next year. This is getting ridiculous. So I was like, you know what, I quit. I obviously continued after that eventually when I realized that there wasn't going to be another Big Pun. Do you know what I mean? Really, rap in terms of skills peaked in the 90s. It's never reached those type of heights since. But yeah, maybe Delicious Ori has done the same thing when he's looked at Moses Atalma and thought, nah, allow it. I don't need them kind of problems. Anyway, let's move on to some other stuff here. Jack Cattrall. Any of you guys catch the press conference? Jack Cattrall versus Harlem Eubank. It's quite funny. This is the poster. They're calling it The Warrior Code. That's what they're titling the show. The Warrior Code. I mean, they could have titled it Parliamentary Procedure. In fact, yeah, seconds out on their video of the full press conference, Parliamentary Procedure. It would have been nice to see Senior there, but maybe they couldn't stump up enough money to get him to turn up. You know what Senior's like. I'm still not completely convinced that he didn't take a bag to turn up for his son's fight with Conor Benn. And the reason I say that is because in that Diary of a CEO interview, I'm sure some of you have seen it. Any of you see that Diary of a CEO interview that Eubank Jr. did? Any of you guys see it? I'm just looking at the chat to see if anyone's seen that. Chris Eubank Jr., Diary of a CEO. No? None of you saw it? Okay, Jack Parsons saw it. Or Jake Parsons, excuse me. Nearly Jack Parsons, like the Rocketeer. In that interview, he said that he was scared. His dad basically texted him the night before the fight and said, call me. Yeah? And he said he was scared to call his dad because, for one, he thought he was going to say something negative. Yeah? So he eventually did call him, and then he got him a room and his dad turned up to the hotel. And the next thing he said is that he was scared to ask his dad what he wants because he thought his dad might answer by saying, I want money. I'll turn up to the fight if you pay me money. Yeah? This is what was in his head. And so he was kind of hesitant to ask his dad, what do you want? But his dad ended up saying, I want nothing. Now, the fact that he had that in his head, that his dad would ask for money, what does that tell you about his dad's character? Eubank Jr. is what, 34, 35? Right? He must know that his dad is the kind of person that would do that would only turn up to a thing like that if he's getting paid. But in this particular case, if there was payment, it wasn't payment he was trying to get from his son. But I would not at all be surprised if he got payment off Turkey Al Sheikh or something and they tried to keep it hush hush to not upset the son. You know, because I think the dad is that cynical. Yeah. Loves a pound note, Rastafari. That's right. I loves a pound note, Rastafari. Comfy Bold says, Senior is bankrupt. Some people just cannot handle money. Well, you know, some people think that their ability to earn money will never change. Do you know what I mean? And that's why they're not more responsible with their money. Because they think, oh, I'll always be able to make it. That kind of thing. Shout out to Fight Sport Talk. So maybe that's what it is. Oh, yeah, I'm going to come on to that, actually. Right, at the press conference today, Jack Catterall, Harlem Eubank, Sam Jones turned up with a monocle and a sheriff's badge, hoping that Senior was going to be there to troll him, basically. That was quite funny. Sam Jones isn't normally funny as much as he tries to be, but that actually was quite funny. Jack says, turn up without payment. You must be mad. Darius says Harlem is a bit different than the other Eubank, seems more quiet. Well, that's because he's only a cousin, right? Eubank Sr., Eubank Jr., that's father and son. Whereas Harlem Eubank is the son of Eubank Sr.'s late brother. I think it's Simon. Is that the son who, is that the brother who Harlem is the son of? So, you know how different brothers have got different characters, you know? Me and my brothers are very different characters. And so maybe that was the same with Simon Eubank versus Chris Eubank Sr. And so Harlem, is very different to Chris Sr. and Jr. Very, very different. And personally, I think it's to his detriment. I think, see, there's this whole concept of flawed genius, right? That oftentimes, not just in boxing, even in music and various other things, geniuses are often like troubled people or eccentric people or narcissistic people. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the time, that's what you get. Not that Chris Eubank Jr. is a genius at all, but there are levels of success in boxing, levels of talent. And somebody asked me on a live stream not too long ago whether I thought Harlem Eubank was like a better version of Chris Jr. And my answer, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, we'll see, but my answer was no. I think that Harlem Eubank is like a Timu version of Eubank Jr. I think he's worse. I think he's like a knockoff version of Eubank Jr. Yeah? And I don't think he's got the necessary arrogance to really make it at the higher levels in boxing, with the talent that he has, which is okay talent, nothing special. I think you need more spite in you. I think you need more boldness. You need more audacity. And Harlem Eubank just seems like too much of a normal guy. I mean, sometimes maybe you get normal guys that reach the very highest levels in boxing, but I think for the most part, you have to be a bit abnormal. And he just seems too normal to me. Yes, Timu Eubank, that's right. I think Waffles are great says, yes, Hatman Catterall is so bland, why does Hearn push him? He pushes him because he's his promoter. That's what he's paid to do, right? And for this fight, again, if Harlem Eubank proves me wrong, I'll put my hands up and say, hey, I underestimated you. But I'm expecting Jack Catterall to win this one comfortably. Yes, he's moving up in weight. Harlem Eubank's also not long been at 147. And if you saw them at the face-off, Jack Catterall's taller. I don't know how tall Harlem Eubank is, but he was significantly shorter than Jack Catterall. So I'm expecting Jack Catterall to box his head off, to be honest. Harlem Eubank does have some athleticism, a little bit of speed, but he's never boxed at the level that Jack Catterall has. And I just think Jack Catterall's more skilled. So I'm expecting Jack Catterall to win it. But what say you? What do you guys reckon? TWR says Harlem has no flavor past the seasoning. I agree. Nothing against the young man, but he just lacks that edge. Okay, Vibes Not Found says, Hatman, have you seen AJ's story? He's discouraging Ori from retiring. I haven't, no. What can I say? I think that Ori's making the right decision by retiring. See, here's the thing. Anthony Joshua has been fantastically successful. And there is a mistake that very successful people often make in thinking that because they did it, anybody can do it. And it's just simply not the case. Do you know what I mean? If anyone could do it, then everybody would be doing it. Yeah? See, man like AJ thinks that success is all about hard work. No. You can only get but so far with hard work. Loads of people work hard, but they don't have the ability to become a success, to get rich, so on and so forth. You see the way that people are not all born with equal physical ability? People are also not born with equal academic ability, etc., etc., etc. You know? So, getting back to boxing, Anthony Joshua might think that he got to where he was with hard work, and he did work hard, but realistically, his physical attributes, his athleticism, being around at the right time to some extent, you know, and getting the push from Eddie Hearn and all that kind of stuff. It was a perfect storm for AJ to do what he did. That storm doesn't exist for Ori at all. It's a completely different heavyweight landscape. There are all these young, talented fighters coming through and still plenty of dangerous guys floating around in the top 10. Ori is not going to get the kind of push that AJ did because he is an Olympic gold medalist. And also that Olympic gold medalist thing doesn't have the same luster to it now, right? Because there are so many fighters that come through and become top fighters that didn't have Olympic gold medals. And there are others, like Audley Harrison, that did have Olympic gold medals that went nowhere. You know? So, and there were, you know, some Olympic medalists. Did James DeGale win Olympic gold or was it silver? I forget now. He went on to become world champion, but overall it was kind of a disappointing career, you know? So I don't think the Olympic medal thing matters as much these days as it used to in the mind of the public. That's my perception anyway. Yeah, shout out to Shabab Khan. Rastafari. That's right. That's right, dreadlocks. And as Eddie Hearn says, whenever Eubank Sr. comes out with that, he always translates it afterwards. Like every time. Rastafari. Yes, dreadlocks. Then he'll do a translation like people can't figure out what he's saying. Yeah, we're coming for your dreadlocks. That's right. There you go. You better watch out, dreadlocks. Excuse me, that was my mother's tongue coming through. Anyway, guess we can move on from this. Not many people interested in Jack Catterall or Harlem Eubank. Both dull characters, yes, but I got Jack Catterall winning this one. I think he'll soundly outbox young Harlem Eubank, but I stand to be corrected. Something slightly more interesting, at least to me, was Lawrence Okoli's response to Richard Riakporhe having a go at him, calling him out. Now, Lawrence Okolie obviously has this reputation for being a clincher, an octopus, putting out all these terrible performances in the past. But over the past, I don't know, whether it is 12 to 18 months, irrespective of how boring he's been in the ring in many of his fights, outside of the ring, this guy's turning into a legit comedian. It's at the point now where I'm literally looking forward to the next Lawrence Okolie interview or even press conference because I just want to hear the banter. Yeah, it was hilarious at the press conference when they did announced that Richard Riakporhe fight, which didn't end up going ahead. Lawrence Okolie talking about, Madonna's old now, and all this deadpan banter that it was coming with was just jokes of the highest order, right? And now every interview he does, he's talking all smoky. He's sending for Dylan White. He's saying this about this one and that one. He's calling out Caballel and Bacoli and all these people. He's talking real smoky. And if you go watch this interview that he's just done, it's called Okolie Responds to Riakporhe and Calls Out Bacoli. Go watch this interview. Even the Sky interviewer is a little taken aback by how smoky Lawrence Okolie is talking in this interview. I found it very, very funny. So, Again, he reiterates this desire to fight Caballel as well. He says he wants to fight Caballel. In fact, he says that Caballel actually turned down a fight date against him because he says he doesn't want to get out until September. This is what Lawrence Okolie is claiming. But he wants Caballel, he wants Bacoli, all these guys. And they put it to him about Richard Riakporhe because Riakporhe is saying he doesn't believe Lawrence Okolie's injury. He thinks he's basically just a coward for pulling out and not rescheduling the bout. And Lawrence Okolie turned around and said Richard Riakporhe is a compulsive liar or pathological liar. He called him some kind of liar anyway. He claims that he did send Richard Riakporhe's team proof of the injury, whereas Richard Riakporhe's acted like that never happened and it was a fake injury. Who knows, right? But I do think that Lawrence Okolie needs to revisit that Richard Riakporhe fight. I think that's unfinished business. That's a matchup I'd like to see. So, but at the same time, if he does go on to fight an Agit Caballel or a Martin Bacoli, etc., then we're not going to look so unfavorably on the Richard Riakporhe fight not happening, because I'm sure most people would think that Agit Caballel certainly is a much more dangerous fight than Richard Riakporhe anyway. So anyway, have a watch of that interview for yourselves. See what you think. Even if Lawrence Okolie is not entertaining inside the ring, outside the ring, man's a straight up comedian now. He's a comedian. If his boxing career didn't work out, this guy could literally do stand-up. I swear down. You know how certain stand-up comedians, they go for the whole deadpan style? There was a lot of British comedians back in the days, back in the 90s, that used to do that. Not so many Americans, although there have been some Americans that also do deadpan. The ones who just tell the jokes and they'll stand there with like a totally straight face. No smirk, no smiles, nothing. No laughing. Totally deadpan expression. Yeah, Lawrence Okolie has got a career doing that if boxing don't work out for him. He's literally low-key hilarious. Workstation says, Madonna's old now, got me. It got me too. Again, it's the way he said it. He just dropped it totally deadpan. Shout out to Mr. Luker. He says, what do you think Diddy did to JB? What do I think? You talk about Justin Bieber? You love using the initials. I would hesitate to even speculate, to be honest with you. But what I can say is I always found it very strange that Diddy was always hanging around with Justin Bieber. Or Justin Bieber was. I found that very strange. Now, apparently Justin Bieber has come out in the past few days, from what I've heard. I didn't hear it out of his own mouth, and claimed that he wasn't violated in any way. Do I believe that? I'm not so sure. I mean, because here we have Diddy when he started hanging around with Bieber. Diddy is a black American guy who at the time would have been, 40? When he started hanging around with Bieber, and Bieber was like barely out of his teens. Bro, that's just weird. That is not a normal friendship, bro. Like, where on earth do friendships like that get struck up? Between like middle-aged black guys and this like young white Canadian kid. It's weird as hell. Nothing inappropriate going on, no? Okay. The whole thing's weird. It doesn't even bear thinking about. And also, somebody who some people might forget was associated with Diddy and Bieber, and I always found this weird as well, Floyd Mayweather. You guys remember that? Mayweather used to have Diddy and Bieber walk him to the ring. Why is Mayweather hanging around with Bieber? What a weird association that was. I know you guys remember. Mayweather always hanging around with Bieber. Is Mayweather going to get pulled into this Diddy stuff? That'd be a turn up for the books. Yo. Bob says Giggs now too. Yeah, I saw Giggs respond to that. It was quite funny. I saw him respond to the Diddy associations and whatnot. He was like, me, the landlord, you've never seen me do nothing weird. You know how Giggs talk. You never seen me do nothing weird. Me, the landlord. You get me, Giggs and that. Yeah. I used to be able to do a decent Giggs impression. Yeah, me, the landlord. Never see me do nothing weird. Mark says, remember Prince Nassim had P. Diddy do a ring walk? That's right. But to be fair, that was back in the 90s. Maybe Prince Nassim didn't know. You know, maybe. Yeah, you get me. You know them ones, innit? Isaac says, Hatman, were you raised as a Christian? No, I didn't have religion pushed upon me. I come from a nominally Christian family, so, you know, my extended family, some of them were practicing Christians, but in terms of my parents, nah. None of that Christian stuff was pushed upon us. That was actually a good one. Shout out to Lucan. Yes. In the interview, that's one of the funny things that Akoli says. It's like a rap beef, right? He says that Richard Riakpo is older than Bacoli, but he calls him Big Bro. How weird is that? Yo. That's a hard diss. Riakpo's older than Bacoli, but he calls him Big Bro. Madness. Shade says, were you religious at all? No, I've never been religious. Someone says, your Giggs impression sounds like Palpatine from the ends. I reckon Giggs would play a good Palpatine. You know when they like face swap Palpatine with different celebrities? I reckon a Giggs one would be good. Because Giggs has got that kind of like plotting type energy about him, doesn't he? You're never going to catch me. Yeah. Yeah, you know like that. You know them ones. The Size Game says, why are you not religious? Why am I not religious? Because I don't like dogma. I don't like, because, you know, religion is predicated on belief and dogma. And I'm not a dogmatic person. I've never had a religious experience that would compel me to take up a religion. So, yeah, and I don't like dogma. I'm not a dogmatic thinker. But shout out to everyone who, you know, practices whatever religion. Whatever works for you is all well and good. religion helps a lot of people. I've been talking about a lot of this stuff on my Patreon recently. Religion is definitely the best path for some people, 100%. But for me, not my thing. Joe Webb says, can Moses beat Okoli now? Or does he need more fights? I suspect he could probably beat him, but that might be one of them little bromances that actually stops a fight from happening. Because even though they did spar, and Lawrence Okoli speaks very highly of Italma, they're little fake mates, as Tyan Booth often describes people. Yeah, Okoli and Italma are little fake mates. And I think Okoli's even said he wouldn't really want to fight Moses because they are friends. But money talks in boxing, so you never know. All right, we got a lot of religious people turned up in the chat tonight, asking me all kind of religious questions. What about faith in Jesus Christ? No, I have no faith in Jesus Christ. Again, if other people do, that's good for them. I got, whatever they like, that Jesus, deity, that's all fine and well, but not for me. Jake says, Hatman, have you watched the new series Mobland? I haven't. People have told me about it, but I haven't watched it. No. It's about Irish mobsters, isn't it? Like Kinahan type situation, as far as I'm aware, from the trailers and stuff that I've seen. Not saying it's based on the Kinahan specifically, but those type of like Irish mob organizations and what have you. Shade says, have you seen Sinners? Yes, I have. I did a breakdown of Sinners. And people are saying it's a very good breakdown. A decoding of the movie Sinners on my Patreon page. Yes, check it out. You can listen to the first 10 minutes for free on my Patreon page. Me decoding, going through all the symbolism and subliminal stuff in Sinners, breaking it all down. Shade says, was it better than Nosferatu? Well, it's all subjective, isn't it? People like different kind of movies, but personally, I much preferred Nosferatu. I much preferred Nosferatu to Sinners. Sinners had a lot of like symbolism and stuff that I could break down. That's why I did a breakdown about it. That's why they did excuse me, struggling to get my words out here. That's why I did a decoding of Sinners. So there was a lot of material there for me to pick apart. But just as a piece of entertainment, I preferred Nosferatu. Definitely. Shout out to Lucan. He says, Hatman Wagwan with Eubank Sr. bigging up Rastafari and then talking about Christ in the same sentence. Confusion of the highest order. To quote Pastor Semper. Pastor Semper. Shout out to anyone who knows about Pastor Semper. Confusion of the highest order. Tommy says, I think Frank Warren will push for Parker Moses. Do you think Parker should wait for the winner of Usyk Dubois? Well, I'm sure he is waiting for the winner of Usyk Dubois. I'm sure he is waiting for that. And maybe if the belts get fractured, like you say, it could well end up being Moses versus Joseph Parker, either for a vacant belt or Parker gets elevated and defends against Moses. That's right. Should I call you Mister? Hilarious. Literally the greatest television interview in human history was that interview there between Pastor Semper and Pepe Julian Ozima. Yo, if anyone ain't seen that, you don't know what you're missing. Good God, man. That interview is so funny. It literally never gets old. Every time you rewatch that interview, you always find something new in there that will just crack you up differently. Oh my gosh, what a gold mine that interview is. Yeah, I saw that comment as well. I mean, Pastor Semper's done various interviews. He did another interview, debate, with, I guess she's a feminist or whatever in Uganda, called Miriam Matembe. And for that one, he turned up with like kitchen utensils and stuff. Yo, man's always turning up with props to debates. When he was debating Pepe Julian on Zimmer, he had vegetables, right? He's like, these are the gadgets that you use. And when he was debating the feminists, man turned up with like a wooden spoon and a ladle and all these other gadgets. Hilarious. There's someone quoting Ninja Man there. Real bad man. That's right. Jay says the Talma's manager said he wants his next fight to be a similar level to his last one, but at the same time calling out Hrgovic. Yeah, I said in a video that I did the other day that this whole calling out Bacoli and Hrgovic stuff is just clout chasing. I don't believe that Talma's going to fight anyone close to the level of a Bacoli or Hrgovic next. That's all just clout from Frank Warren. Clout chasing. We're at the end where Simon, the mediator, he says, what about hetero rights? Do you not campaign for heteros as well? And Pepe's like, I told you I'm a human rights campaigner. And then they're reading out the acronym. He's like, LGBTQI. Where's the H? It's like African TV, I'm telling, particularly Ugandan TV, is so damn funny that you'd think it was some kind of parody or something. Do you know what I mean? You'd think it was satire. It's so damn funny. I stopped watching television years ago. But if the television where I live, or I don't understand the television where I live, is all in Spanish, but if Western TV, like talk shows and news programs, were as funny as Ugandan TV, I'd still watch it. Dear oh dear. Ugandan TV is ridiculous. It is so damn funny, it's unreal. Shout out to Iron's Analysis. It says, evening Hatman, just listen to the Okoli interview, absolutely hilarious. Man's calling Bacoli big bro and he's older than him. There you go. Oh my gosh. The Truth Channel, are you trolling or what? You sound a bit emotional about Joseph Parker. Calm down. Omo Jr. says, Hammer, what are your views on Dylan White going in on Simon Jordan? It's just Dylan White being Dylan White, innit? He's a spiky character. He's the kind of person who could start a fight in an empty room. So you don't really have to say much critical of Dylan White in order to provoke a, how can I even describe it? A pretty fierce attack. Because all Simon Jordan did was suggest, he made a terrible mistake, but it wasn't terrible enough for you to insult the man. You might take a little dig and have a laugh, but the mistake he made is saying that Fabio Wardley should fight Dylan White, where obviously Fabio Wardley is managed by Dylan White, so that can't happen. So yeah, it was a embarrassing little blunder, but that caused Dylan White to literally rip into Simon Jordan in several interviews. Like, calm down. It's not that deep, bro. But that's who Dylan White is. He's a fiery character. Jake says, Hatman, I'm on a summer cut. Any tips for nighttime cravings? I would just say go on a keto diet. Once you get off carbs, you don't get as hungry. And a lot of people are maybe unaware of exactly what carbs are. You literally have to cut out all sugar, bread, pasta, grains, even fruit. Yeah? Even certain nuts are high in carbs. So you're basically sticking to meat, fat, particularly animal fat, so on and so forth. High fat yogurt, etc. Mr. Lucas says vegetables is sound. Well, it depends which vegetables, because potatoes are vegetables and that's extremely high carbs. So you need to stay off potatoes and anything like that. Any kind of potatoes, if you're on a ketogenic diet, you cannot be eating potatoes. So yeah, once you get off all carbs and you get into ketosis, you don't get that hungry. You can easily go, or I can anyway, 1 meal a day. Just some eggs and steak and whatever. Some butter on there. You'll be all right for a whole day on that. And you won't get cravings at night and whatnot once you get into ketosis. Godo Frog says carbs ain't that much of an issue. It's all about being in a calorie deficit. Well, ultimately, it's about being in a calorie deficit. But the reason that being on a ketogenic diet helps, right, and being on carbs makes it more difficult is because carbs spike your blood sugar. And so your body goes into these, this cycle of like craving and then eating and then craving and then eating. When you come off carbs completely, the cravings go. You don't feel like eating as much. This is the reason, Yeah, it's all about calories at the end of the day, and being in a calorie deficit, no matter what you're eating, is going to allow you to lose weight. It's just that being on a keto diet makes it easier for some people, or maybe a lot of people, to lose weight because the cravings just go away. And also, when your body is in ketosis, it starts targeting the fat, right, more intensely on your body to use as a fuel source. That's the other thing. Because by eating fat, like particularly animal fat, you're training your body to use that as a fuel source. And so when there's no animal fat in your gut, then it's going for the fat that's actually on your body, your subcutaneous fat. Yeah, exactly. As Moraz man said there, with carbs, you have to make an effort. On low carb diet, no effort. It's really easy. Once you get into ketosis, it's very, very easy to not eat much. That's right, Jimmy. You do. You lose a lot of water weight in the initial stages of keto. That's absolutely correct. Yes. That's absolutely correct. Duke's boy says, is ketosis possible for a diabetic? I assume not. I would consult a professional. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a professional in that field. I don't want to be giving somebody advice that might end up harming them. So I would consult a professional about that. But anyway, moving on to, I guess, the main topic of this stream, which we haven't talked about yet. We've been too busy talking about Diddy and Bieber and rap beefs and what have you. Here we go. Dave Allen on his channel saying he wants the Deontay Wilder fight. And here he is saying Wilder will have to Google me. Dave Allen reveals talks with Eddie Hearn over fight. Now, Deontay Wilder might not know who he is. Wilder has a fight scheduled against some fan of his who took a picture with him back in the days, maybe got an autograph. If that fight goes ahead, we'll see how Wilder looks. Would he then afterwards be interested in a Dave Allen fight? It's hard to say, really, because Deontay Wilder's been in such terrible form. And last time out, he got demolished by the big man from China. His confidence might be shot to the extent that he wouldn't even want to risk a Dave Allen fight. Do you know what I mean? He might look at what Dave Allen did to Johnny Fisher and think, I don't want that smoke. It all depends on where Wilder's confidence is at. If Wilder's confidence is high enough, then the Dave Allen fight might actually be attractive for him. He might think, yeah, let me go over to the UK, fight this journeyman Dave Allen, do you know what I mean, who got a victory over a little novice gimmick fighter. You know, that'll be a nice little comeback for me, which will pay me more money than a similar level opponent to Dave Allen in the United States. So it all depends on where Deontay Wilder's confidence is at. But if the fight were to go ahead, would I give Dave Allen a chance? Yes, I actually would. Based upon the Deontay Wilder we've seen over the past couple years, yeah. I'd give him a chance. I'm not necessarily saying I'd make him favorite, but I'd definitely give him a chance. His confidence is high. Deontay Wilder's never been a particularly skilled fighter. He's always been a one-trick pony. And when that trick is gone, what's he got left? Not much. So I'd give Dave Allen a chance at this stage. Yes, I would. But what say you? How many of you in the chat think that Dave Allen would have a decent chance? Big up Funny Faces for the super chat. Yeah, that's the best super chat I've had for a while. Big up. I think there's only one super chat I've had that was more than that. The guy had some kind of Nigerian name. He donated like £100 a few times. Shout out to him. But big up Funny Faces for the super chat. Much appreciated. Must be payday for you. Guess the drinks are on me now, right? Shout out to Funny Faces. Exactamundo says Allen sparks him. Irons Analysis says I'd have it as 60-40 Wilder. That's right, D-Man. Drinks on me now. Thanks to the Funny Faces. Generosity. There you go. What are you guys having? JDM says, no, Hatman, is Wilder really that bad now? I think so. Because if you take away Deontay Wilder's right hand, what's left is a pretty terrible fighter. I mean, am I right or am I wrong? You take away that right hand, and what is left is what? Area level? Domestic level? I mean, he's a terrible fighter when you take the right hand away. And you see, the thing about the right hand is it's not just the mechanics of the punch. Deontay Wilder was somebody who would channel all of his hatred, all of his pain, all of his aggression into that punch. So it wasn't just a technical thing. It wasn't just an athletic thing. It wasn't just about kinetic chain. The velocity that he was able to generate The snap and all of that came from a place of emotion, in my opinion. And because Wilder isn't the same emotional animal that he was before, that right hand is not the same anymore. It's not the same. Shout out to Tom. BC and you says he's basically Audley Harrison without the right hand, maybe worse. Now I'm saying worse. Because Audley Harrison was actually a good technical boxer. He was well schooled. Whereas Deontay Wilder isn't a good technical boxer at all. Like, not in the slightest. He's athletic, but in terms of his technique, is horrible. Yeah, that's right, East Midlands fight fan. Wilder tried to take your head clean off. You know, I remember when Deontay Wilder kept making those comments about wanting to catch a body. Shout out to D-Man. He says, I found it hilarious. His wife left after he started losing. What a horrible person. Without getting into the whole red pill area again. A horrible person, yes. But then again, Deontay Wilder apparently might be a horrible person as well. Because didn't he sleep with his, allegedly sleep with his brother's girlfriend? Ryan Giggs style. So Deontay might be pretty horrible too. But yeah, you know, you need to be careful when you are a male public figure, celebrity, athlete, whatever, about these women who are attracted to you when you're at the height of your success. That's the double-edged sword, isn't it? Because once you become that successful, it's like, but then again, right, in this day and age, particularly in the West, finding a woman that's actually going to love you for who you are, for your heart, that's pretty much nigh on impossible. If you're under the age of about 30, 35, particularly if you're somebody that, you know, lives in a city, finding a woman who's going to love you for your heart, come on, bro. That's not happening anymore. This ain't the 1950s. Yeah? Women are hypergamous. And so to some extent, they're going to want you for your resources, so on and so forth. If you lose your job and you become down and out and depressed, most of these girls are going to leave you. That's just the way it goes, isn't it? Did I see Fury with 50 Cent? Yes, I did. That was quite weird, actually. Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora at the 50 Cent concert with also Frank Smith. How random is that? But yeah, that's what I was, that's a thought I didn't finish. I was distracted by the incredible super chats. Deontay Wilder, when he said that he wanted to catch a body in the ring, at no point did I think he was saying that for clout. At no point did he say, at no point did I think that Wilder was just saying that to sell tickets and no, because he was saying that kind of stuff in between fights when he didn't even have a fight scheduled, when he went on the Breakfast Club and said he literally, they asked him, you're just saying that for clout though, aren't you? You're just saying that to, you know, create headlines. And he said, no, that's something I really want. I really want a body on my record. I 100% believe Deontay at that time wanted a body on his record. Yeah? And I caught a lot of flack from people, particularly Deontay Wilder fans, for saying that I believe that he genuinely meant that. And he was literally saying he genuinely meant it, but somehow his fans are coming at me sideways. Oh, he doesn't mean it. How dare you? Yes, he did mean it. Okay? And here's the thing. If Deontay Wilder didn't have that level of dark viciousness in him, he never would have become world champion with the skill set that he has. He needed that type of, literal killer instinct in order to compensate for the technical deficiencies. He needed it. And I was never offended by Deontay Wilder saying that he wanted to catch a body in the ring. Because Mike Tyson said he wanted to catch a body in the ring. George Foreman said he wanted to catch a body in the ring. And both guys, despite what their fanboys try and claim, both guys, long after they retired, confirmed that they meant it. It wasn't a figurative thing. It wasn't something that they were using, to create headlines. Long after George Foreman and Mike Tyson retired, they both in interviews said they literally wanted to kill somebody in the ring. It wasn't a figurative thing. That was the intention they were going in there with, to try and end someone's life. Yeah? And I've been saying for the longest time, punchers of that level, yeah, we're talking about all-time great punchers, many of them are like that, bro. Their mindset is so extreme, that's what they are able to channel into their punches to produce that kind of power. It's not all about the kinetic chain, and obviously that plays into it, and that's a major component. But the way that a Mike Tyson would hit the bag, the way that a George Foreman would hit the bag, the way that a Deontay Wilder would train, they're training to literally kill. The intention in their mind is to kill. Like, when you're in a battle for your life, in a life and death struggle, you are going to find levels of energy that you wouldn't have if you weren't in a life or death struggle. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so that's the mentality that they had when they went in the ring. To them, it was a life and death struggle. They would imagine their opponent trying to kill them. And in their mind, I'm trying to kill you then. You understand? They would put themselves in such an extreme mind state that would allow them to produce the kind of punching power that they did, So, yeah, I was never offended by that, because at the end of the day, there's a referee, there's a doctor, there's cornermen, and they are there to protect the fighters. Yeah, so as much as Deontay talks about catching a body, and Mike Tyson talks about catching a body, and George Foreman admitted that he was trying to catch a body in his prime, none of them actually caught bodies, did they? Despite being incredible punchers, none of them caught bodies. So that's why I'm not offended by it, because the intent really doesn't matter that much. And if Mike Tyson didn't have that type of intent, he wouldn't have been as exciting a fighter as he was. Same with Deontay Wilder. Yeah? If Wilder didn't have that type of dark intent, he wouldn't have been as exciting. Okay, Tosserman says, I'm in my mid-20s with no job and out of shape. I'm in a relationship with a 45-year-old, but I can tell she has that genuine old school love for me. I wouldn't get that love from a girl my age even if I fixed up. Okay, I mean, good for you, but I do wonder what a 45-year-old woman would be doing with a guy in his 20s. So... What do you guys think in the chat? Is he trolling me? A 45-year-old woman with a man in his 20s. That's kind of weird. Because women naturally gravitate towards men who are older. It's all an aspect of hypergamy, right? Now, women will have different limits on what the age gap should be, but generally women like a man who's older, Even if it's only 5 years older, they want someone a bit older. But with men, it's very rarely like that. Normally, if a guy is with like an older woman, he's some type of scam artist or something. Do you know what I mean? He's like trying to scam a pensioner out of money. You know them ones. Generally, a man will not go for a woman who's like loads older than him. But you say you're unemployed and out of shape, and I guess you feel like that's what you can get when you're unemployed and out of shape. Fair enough. But generally, yeah, guys are not going to go for age gaps with a woman's like decades older than them. That's very unusual. Shout out to Striker for the super chat. He says, what are your general thoughts on AJ? Broad topic, or AI, on AI. Broad topic, well, what's your initial impressions? It's the quintessential double-edged sword, isn't it? Because there are tremendously positive implications for many aspects of life, business. I mean, AI can do jobs that human beings could do before. So from the perspective of a business owner, you can save so much money using AI now. You can design art and posters and flyers and all this type of stuff with AI. You can use ChatGPT to write entire things for your website. Do you know what I mean? So there's the positive side to it like that. And then there's the negative side to it where, AI can be used to mine information and data. AI can be used to replace jobs. That's the other side of it, right? As much as a business owner wants to save money, you're putting people out of work using AI. People that would have had a job before. And also the most sinister aspect of AI is with stuff like deepfake technology. I've spoken about this in previous streams where a corporation, an authoritarian government, etc., if they wanted to target political dissidents, for example, they could use like deepfake technology, AI and whatnot, to make you look like you did something which you didn't do, committed a crime that you didn't commit. And some of this deepfake technology is so convincing now. I mean, you can go on, apps like, what's it called now? Snapchat. And Snapchat, at least used to, I don't know if it still has, had a filter where you can use a picture of somebody and in real time, the app will basically morph your face into this celebrity's face. Now that's on, a mainstream consumer level app like Snapchat. Imagine the kind of face changing technology that governments and corporations have got behind the scenes. So the implications of that are frightening, Like I say, political dissident, and they want to fit you up for something that you didn't do. Jimbo Jones says, did you talk about Ori's retirement? Yeah, I did. But shout out to Striker for the super chat. He says, deepfake technology is what concerns me. Since people will eventually not question AI, the people who are in charge of the guardrails can make it suit them, of course. Exactamundo says, my mate swears he was talking to AI on a dating app. To be fair, you might as well be talking to AI, talking to some actual human beings these days, The personalities are so primitive, might as well be AI. You get a better conversation. You know what? You actually do get better. And that's one of the things, actually, right? Customer service is better with AI, isn't it? At least if you're chatting online. I mean, usually, most AI that you deal with in terms of customer service is so primitive that it only gives you these like pre-programmed responses. But some companies have got like really sophisticated AI chatbots, really sophisticated ones. I think it was Trezor. Do you guys know Trezor? That's like the Bitcoin crypto wallet company. I had a conversation with their AI and it was literally like talking to a person. It wasn't like the standard AI that you get with most companies where it's obviously a bot and it can't go that far. Their AI was souped up, mate. It was literally like talking to a human being. I think it was Trezor. I think they were the ones who had the crazy AI. Shout out to Matthew Jukes. All right, peeps. Gonna draw the curtain on this one. I feel like we barely talked about boxing, but then again, I haven't done a night flight show for a while, so this can double up as a night flight show. In closing, Set says, Hatman, have you studied the Dogon tribe of Mali? I know about the Dogon tribe. I know about the claims made about the Dogon tribe and whatnot. So yes, I'm very familiar with them. But yeah, I'm going to close this one out. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. Enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully you guys did as well. Special shout out to everyone who donated via Super Chat. Yeah, big up Killer Priest. Always like Killer Priest music from his first album, Heavy Mental. Love that album. But yeah, take care, be good. I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out.